All right. Who came here expecting to have some fun this morning? Me. I know I did. Woo! All right, so we have another emoji game. We're going to guess the songs again. But wait, we've got a special twist on it. Man versus emoji. Who wore it better? Let's see. Who did it better? So this was Miss Justice's idea, and I thought it was a little fun. All right, well, let's get to the first Name That Song. Oh, I know this one, I know. Yes, Anna what? Yes, and I think that's also known as like the Christmas song or something. All right, next one, let's see who can get it first. That's so sad. Why did she have to get run over? That's not nice. All right, what else do we got? Oh, we got another Man versus Emoji. Let's see who did it better. All right, next up. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. Little Drummer Boy, yes. Yeah. All right, and we all know that one. All right, and next. Oh, I know this one. Santa Baby. Who sung it best? Aretha Kitt. She's the best one. All right, let's see what's up next. All right, we got another Man versus Emoji. Let's see. So fun. He looks great in those rose-colored glasses. All right, and we've got another song. Oh, who said that? That was really good. Good job. All right, next one. All right, that was so much fun. Yay! Thank you, Jimmy, for your beautiful expressions. And here at Forward Point, we are a community of faith, hope, and love, helping people find their purpose. Because we believe you were born on and we want to be part of that story any way we can. If you are new here to Forward Point, we want to thank you for stepping into a new community of faith. If you're joining us online, welcome, good morning. Here at Forward Point, we like to give you a small token of our appreciation for coming in this morning. You'll have a gift bag, and in there's some fun stuff. So if you didn't get that, please do. And we also have Mama Skinner's famous banana bread. You can't leave here without that. And if you are new to Forward Point, there are so many ways to connect. We are a phone-friendly church here, so if you want to get out your phone and text the word welcome to 315-883-2213. Yes, there we go. We have a digital connection card that we would like you to fill out, and we just want to send you another small token in the mail as our appreciation for you coming out. There are also many ways to get connected to find out what's going on through social media, Facebook and Instagram and all of that fun stuff. And last but not least, the best way to get connected is through our Church Center app, which you can find in your Apple store. They also have it for Androids, so please download that, and you get to find out what's coming up, what's going on, like what we had going on yesterday. So we had the men's and women's breakfast, and at the women's breakfast during the holiday, we like to do like a white elephant with Christmas tree ornaments, and if you were there last year and this year, they like to torture me. I have a thing with ornaments. I collect them, all near and dear to me. They're all special. And I fell in love with both the ornaments I got both past years. And the Skinners, you got to watch out for them because Mama Skinner stole my ornament this year. And last year, her granddaughter stole my ornament. That was no fun. But anyways, and then I heard there was like 30 men over at Love Handles yesterday, and they had great conversation. We also did a cookie exchange at the women's breakfast, so Please don't miss that. We do it every second Saturday of the month. And Mama Skinner, who is also known as our food angel, is opening up her doors to us this Sunday and next Sunday. You can find all the details about that in the Church Center app underneath the Better Together group in the events. But quickly, it is from 1 to 3 today at Mama Skinner's house. If you can't find it in the Church Center app, ask one of us. And last but not least, we're throwing a Christmas Eve party or a birthday party for Jesus. Woo! It is a great time to invite friends and family, even if you want to invite them the next couple of weeks to gear up for that. We have little cards on the info desk to pass out to use as an invitation. So please don't miss that. It's going to be so much fun. Last but not least, children, if you haven't left already, go meet them in the back corner and they'll bring you up for Kidsman, and we're going to continue with our gathering.
Thought you said we lost him.
I found you all! Thank goodness for that star. If it weren't for that star, I wouldn't have found you guys. Woo!
Pretty convenient that now you can read the stars.
Oh no, just that big super bright one. I mean, it's like, blam! But I'm still gonna need directions home. Can someone write that down for me?
We don't have time for this. We're going to see the Messiah.
Look at us, the 4 wise men. We're inseparable.
More like insufferable.
Speaking of suffering, my feet can't take much more walking. It's been 3 years. We should have been home by now.
You guys can blame me all day for losing those camels, but you all knew going into this that my double hitch knot needed a little work.
Why don't we proceed in silence, reverent silence, in honor of the Messiah?
Totally cool with that.
Good.
So, I was thinking about my gift. I mean, what baby needs white jade anyway, right?
We've been over this 1,000 times. White jade represents his purity and goodness. The gold represents his royalty. The burning of frankincense reminds us that the aura of God is around us at all times, and the myrrh is to anoint him as King of Kings.
Right. Just listen. I think I found a better gift. A gift that'll make everyone forget that I lost the white jade.
You what?
I mean, I think a gift that makes the white jade just look like nothing. A gift that's better than the white jade that I replaced.
You replaced with what?
The greatest gift of all. Oh yeah. Wait for it. Blam! Hummus!
You must be kidding.
Do you mean I must be kidding? Because I'm not kidding at all. Hummus is delicious, okay? And it's very symbolic. People unite together when they see hummus. Much like a savior. Okay. Okay. This is my bad. This is on me. You guys go see the Messiah. I'll just stay here.
I think that would be best. But at least you have a snack.
Yeah. I just thought it just doesn't matter what we bring this little king. He doesn't need any of our gifts. I mean, you know, he's a savior. I mean, he's a gift to us. Maybe I was hoping he's bigger than all my mistakes. Yeah, I guess that's what I was hoping. All right, I'll see you guys later. Why are you doing that?
Because I hope he's that kind of a savior, too. Let's go.
I wish someone had some pita bread.
Blam!
See? Oh, there we go. Woo! Now I'm hot. Anybody else having a crazy December? Well, you guys are a bunch of boring people. I have to, of all my years of life, of which there's plenty, I feel like this December has been the craziest, busiest month to date in my life. We got 4 kids, and we got kids who are in Christmas parties, who are doing plays, who are doing concerts, Christmas concerts. We have Christmas Eve coming up, and all in all, it has been a pretty busy month. And in the midst of that, I got to be honest with you, of the 4 wise men that you saw up there on the screen, I personally identify most with that last one, right? Mr. Hummus. Anybody else identify with the hummus wise man? Oh, you guys are a bunch of liars. Come on now. Yeah, the last thing I feel like I have is my life together, and it feels like some of the most important things that are going on in life for us are happening now all at the same time. Tomorrow, we're going to be on Bridge Street. Love Handles is going to be on Bridge Street on News Channel 9. So we're preparing for that. We have a concert tomorrow night. We're going to be hosting a bunch of people. There's no water on Forest Hill right now, so we can't have any kind of product. It's just all sorts of things that all come together, and I'm left there standing thinking, man, I pray and hope that that's the kind of Messiah that Jesus is as well. The good news is, unlike the wise men, I can speak from experience based on the gospel that we have that tells us of Jesus' life, and based on my story, based on a lot of your stories. We know that that's the kind of Messiah that Jesus is, and it's great to be a part of that. And sometimes in those busiest of moments, and sometimes in those craziest of times, you get these little glimpses of just how awesome God is and works despite our 4th wise man tendencies. This last week was show week for our kids at C-SPA. They're part of the Christian School for Performing Arts, and they've been doing the show Frozen. Thank you so much. They've been doing the show Frozen, and over the last few days was the performance for that. And at the end of each show, they have a student that they select who gets to be a part of what's called the final bow, where they're chosen based on their characteristics of being a leader, of being helpful, of being someone who goes the extra mile. They're selected out of a cast of some 80-plus different kids, and so there was 4 of them throughout this show week, and it's an honor that my oldest daughter, Justice Joy, got to be a couple years ago, but yesterday afternoon is when we went, and as they're preparing for the final bow, Mom and Dad had no idea. We're watching, and as the person comes to do the final bow, I see a little blonde bobblehead that looks a lot like our second oldest, Justice Joy, right? And I'm thinking, Augustine, 4th wise man, okay? Let's get it all out there. This is where we're at, okay? This is where my mind is. We're surprised. We're taken off guard because we had no idea. Before, when Justice was selected, we had an idea. They told us. And so we were like, man, we had no idea. We're not even sure if that was really her, if she was trying to hug somebody who was there. And we come to find out it was indeed Augustine who was chosen. And we got this video that I just want to share with you because I really love it. And we'll talk about it afterwards.
but has still been a tremendous leader backstage, on stage, in how they carry themselves, in how they treat other people, is someone who is mature beyond their age, and somebody who we very much love and appreciate. So I'd like to congratulate Augie Doyle.
Sorry, Marissa. Yeah.
Guys, make way for the best friend.
Oh my God. We should not have time. Why are we sitting?
So, in the midst of Fourth Wise Men season, of which I feel that I'm a part of, it really, as a dad, makes you love, for one, that your daughter gets any kind of accomplishment. You're over the moon when that happens. But I love seeing the emotion that her friends have around her, for sure. And, Augustine starts off happy, but then she just starts crying, right? And those tears are precious to me because, we know our daughter probably better than all of you, hopefully. And we know that our daughter loves those things. She loves to be honest. She loves to be sincere. She loves to work hard. She loves to think of other people first. And you just love as a parent to see her love those values and traits. And in a season where I feel like the fourth wise men, who should have been dropped off long ago, no idea in the world how I got here in life, it's just an awesome reminder that he is that kind of Messiah for us. And he can be that kind of Messiah for you if you will allow him to be that. We are kind of knee deep in this series talking about this Christmas and how might this Christmas be different than any other Christmas before. We kind of often go through this idea where if we were to take the nebulizer little pen that Men in Black has and zapped everybody's memories of every kind of religious Christian thing that they've experienced up to this point in life, how might how we practice our relationship with Jesus look a little different if we just were given the Bible and the story of the Gospels to base how we're going to follow Jesus on. And there's a good chance that going through that process, if we had the ability, that the way we practice it, the way we engage with it, might look a little different than the way that we currently do things. It's not to say how we currently do things are bad, but it is important to say, we're going to constantly go through this process of doing a little deconstruction, of kind of breaking down, okay, what are some of the things that we've grown to hold on really tight to that we say, man, this is super important, and bring it back to the gospel and realize that maybe it's not so important as we thought it was. Maybe it's not so accurate the way that we thought it was. Maybe some of the facts that we've just kind of always believed because this is the way that it was sung or this is the way we saw it done in a drama, that we just assumed that it was reality, when in fact, it's not. And we've been basing around this idea that we find in the book of Matthew about Jesus and why he came to earth. It starts in Matthew chapter 1. It says, "She will bring a son to birth, and when she does, you, Joseph, will name him Jesus." God says, because it's going to be him who's going to save the people from their sins. It's not going to be the church who's going to be able to save people from their sins. It's not going to be reading the Bible enough times. It's going to be saving people from their sins. It's going to be him, Jesus, who's going to do it. And this is going to bring about the prophet's embryonic revelation that, watch for this, a virgin will get pregnant and bear a son, and they will name him. Even though he has his own name, he's got Jesus is going to be the name that he's given, but everyone's going to consider him. They're going to recognize him. He's going to have the nickname Emmanuel, which is Hebrew for God is with us. That we're called to practice this witness idea where we're emptying ourselves out of everything that is of us, of everything that this world has to offer. We're emptying that out for the sake of practicing witness with the world and people around us. Now, the interesting thing about Matthew's gospel, from which this verse is in chapter 1, is Matthew doesn't give us too many details around the birth of Jesus. either he didn't sympathize with mothers and, kind of go through the experience, but he kind of goes right from this angelic vision that he gives and recounts for Joseph right into start talking about the Magi. And the book of Matthew is the only account that we have of the Magi or the wise men that we're going to be talking about today. So first, what I'd like to do is just to read through their portion of the story. So if you have your Bibles, you can turn to the next chapter, is Matthew chapter 2, or you can follow along in your YouVersion app, or we're going to read it up on the screen. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, that's as soon as it happens. Nothing, the angelic vision, and then boom. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem village, Judah territory, this was during Herod's kingship, a band of scholars arrived in Jerusalem from the east. And they asked around, where can we find and pay homage to the newborn king of the Jews? We observed a star in the eastern sky that signaled his birth. We're on a pilgrimage to worship him. When word of their inquiry got to Herod, he was terrified. And not Herod alone, but most of Jerusalem as well. Herod lost no time. He gathered all the high priests and religion scholars in the city together and asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? They told him, Bethlehem, Judah territory. The prophet Micah wrote it plainly. It's you, Bethlehem, in Judah's land, no longer bringing up the rear. From you will come the leader who will shepherd rule my people, my Israel. Herod then arranged a secret meeting with the scholars from the east, pretending to be as devout as they were. He got them to tell him exactly when the birth announcement star appeared. And then he told them the prophecy about Bethlehem and said, go find this child. Leave no stone unturned. And as soon as you find him, send word, and I'll join you at once in your worship. Instructed by the king, they set off. Then the star appeared again, the same star they had seen in the eastern skies. And it led them on until it hovered over the place of the child. They could hardly contain themselves. They were in the right place. They had arrived at the right time. They entered the house and saw the child in the arms of Mary, his mother. Overcome, they kneeled and worshiped him. Then they opened their luggage and presented gifts, gold, frankincense, myrrh. In a dream, they were warned not to report back to Herod, so they worked out another route, left the territory without being seen, and returned to their own country. So here we have the only recollection of the Magi or the wise men, and they're part of the gospel story. So now we're going to kind of dive in a little bit and maybe do a little deconstructing of some of our thoughts on the wise men or the Magi and their part in the nativity. The first thing that we see right in verse 1 of chapter 2 is this was sometime after Jesus was born. So this kind of gives us some insight into the background of these guys, right? There was the star, and we're all familiar with the star. And they saw this star, and they started off on their journey. And we get some insight into kind of when this takes place after Jesus, because most of our nativities all take place with the shepherds, but also the wise men being there for the birth of Jesus. And the reality of this was not likely, not the reality at all of how it happened. In fact, we get later on in the story that we read, we see here how Herod arranged based on the timing that they asked exactly when the birth announcement star appeared, right? Herod is asking the wise men, when did you see this star that started off your journey? And Herod, when he realized, in verse 16, a little bit after what we already read, when he realized that the scholars had tricked him, he flew into a rage, and he commanded the murder of every little boy 2 years old and under who lived in Bethlehem and its surrounding hills. Now catch this is the key. He determined that age from the information that he had gotten from the scholars. All right, so he asked the scholars, wise men, Magi, when did you see the star that started you off on this journey? And they start to reveal some dates. This is when we saw the star, and we started packing, and we sent out invitations to everyone in our clan to begin this journey that would bring us here. And based on those numbers, based on how long it took them to travel from where they originated to where they are now, they gathered. He said, okay, He wants to kill every boy to try to snuff out this Messiah. So he kills every boy who's 2 years old and younger. So we see that the wise men arrive on the scene sometime between after the birth to 2 years later. There's a good chance that it's somewhere there in the middle, probably somewhere when Jesus is, maybe 6 to 9 months old, based on how long it would take to travel from where they were in Persia and Babylon. All right, so right there we have this idea that maybe the nativity story that we've always heard every year is not quite the factual nativity story that we know. But, over time we kind of make allowances, we kind of change things because in our culture, we take a little creative liberty to make for a better nativity display on our mantle. Or maybe to make for a better production where we can have all the parts at one. But Matthew is very clear that this is happening at a very specific time, and not right when Jesus was born, but sometime after Jesus was born. And then we dive it a little bit into this band of scholars, and this is really the crux of our conversation this morning, because these scholars, these wise men, these magi, have a much more tainted past than you and I probably have considered up to this point. The first question that we should kind of throw out there is, how many of these magi were there? We don't know. Right? We don't know how many there were. What we do know is that there were 3 gifts. So because there were 3 gifts, over time, it's kind of just been church tradition to say that there's been 3 of these wise men or scholars. But we don't know. We could have been one guy who had 3 gifts, or it could have been a whole fleet of guys who kind of pulled their resources together and got the 3 best possible gifts that were available to them. But we don't know. And man, if I could tell you how many people who have, broken relationships over some of the Christmas nativity story because of, we 3 kings and we 3 wise men and the different traditions that have been built over time versus coming back to the story to realize there's a lot less that we know than we actually do. Not just how many they are, but who these guys are, because who these guys are is very jaw-dropping in my opinion. We know that there's a band of scholars, not sure how many of them. They arrived in Jerusalem from the east. Right? This is a group of people, a band of scholars, probably a very large caravan. We're talking about, soldiers that would protect these people. We're talking about their families. A very large caravan that when they saw this star, it probably took some time for them to prepare, to pack, and to bring everything that they would need, because they had no idea where this star's journey would take them, how long it would be. All they knew is that they saw something they hadn't seen before, and they were going to pack up and go on a journey until they either found it or died trying. So that probably required a lot of resources. That took a lot of time to pack. And then the traveling. But something inside of these guys were drawn to pursue this Savior that was foretold, right? Because when we talk about witness and this idea of witness, pursuing witness gives others the opportunity to pursue witness, right? Jesus is on this mission to move into the neighborhood and to live out witness for us. And that inspires these people who are not Jews, who have no connection to Jerusalem or any of the religious things on face value. But because of Jesus' plan to be Emmanuel, God with us, they decide themselves to abandon everything that they know so that they might experience witness. It's awesome when you're a part of a story and you see it play out. Like I got to see this play out this last week. We have our life group that meets at our house on Tuesdays. And again, part of this 4th Wise Men season, the Doyle family is not going to be there at life group this Tuesday because we're going to our kids' concert. And as a result, I said, you know what? I would really love to have Leroy lead the group on Tuesday when we're not there. But because he's never really had the opportunity to lead the group on his own, I figured let's have him lead this one as well so that I can kind of coach him and give him some feedback afterward on how he did. And, it's kind of an awkward thing probably for him to know that I'm sitting there watching, how he's doing things. And it's awkward for me because I'm normally the one asking all the questions. And we have life group, and it's amazing life group. And then sometime midweek, there's a message in our group chat on the Church Center app, and people start commenting on, we're still talking about how this was the most amazing life group that we've ever experienced up to this point, right? And I'm thinking, it's the one that I didn't lead, right? Like, what's up with that, right? Like, here's Leroy trying to steal my job or something, right? I don't understand. But it was awesome to see, because what happened was a scene was created where one person was able to be open and to be vulnerable and to practice witness. And another definition of witness, I would say, is being known. Allowed the other people in the room to know them on a much more than just superficial level. And when one person kind of tiptoed into that and allowed it to happen, then all of a sudden another person in the group kind of dug in deep and decided to practice witness and being known. And there was some tears shed, and then that caused somebody over here to start having some tears. And as a result, right, I'm out of a job and no longer lead life groups, I guess, anymore here at Ford Point, right? Not because of anything that I've ever been able to muster up or do, and not even Leroy. And Leroy would be the first one to tell you. It was the fact that there's people in the group decided to risk a whole lot to practice witness, to practice being known, and it comes at a cost. It's a very scary thing. It's a very vulnerable thing. It's a thing that for these guys, probably cost them everything that they had. But in the end, if you remember the end of the story, and we're going to dive into it at the end of our time together, they were just over the roof, excited and happy and content to be able to be a part of that experience, much like what we were able to experience at our life group. So if you're not a part of a life group, I encourage you to get a part of one, because that's where life change happens. So these guys, this is who they are. And when word got around that these guys are in town and they're asking about this star that had appeared in the sky, Herod's response was that he was terrified. And not just Herod alone, but here, this is so key, that most of Jerusalem was terrified as well. You see, there's something about the who and the how of these guys that left a lot of people terrified. Right? There's something about the way that they walked into town, and again, probably much bigger than what we see in our activities. It was probably a caravan full of soldiers and a lot of wealth and a lot of people, because they were on a mission that might have been kind of one of those burn the ship type of goals, where if they didn't reach their end goal, they weren't going to make it back. But this band, this group, this caravan of people, it scared not just the leader, but most of Jerusalem was scared as a result of who they were and what they were asking about. And the key to really dive into what about these guys was so scary lies in how this word is translated. In the Message translation, you saw band of scholars. In your translation, it may be magi or maybe wise men. But when we dive into, and it's going to get a little heady here, when we dive into the word that's used in the Gospel of Matthew, there's two different ways that it's translated. In the Strong's definition, it's translated a magian, that is Oriental scientist, by implication, a magician. Right, this is a group of magicians. Okay, or there's a different definition. There's the Thayer's definition, and it says the name given by the Babylonians, Medes, Persians, and others to the wise men, yes, but also to teachers, to priests, to physicians, astrologers, seers, interpreters of dreams, augurs, soothsayers, sorcerers, be the Oriental wise men or astrologers who, having discovered by the rising of a remarkable star that the Messiah had just been born, came to Jerusalem to worship him, or C, a false prophet and sorcerer. Now, this should kind of start to make us feel a little uneasy, because in the church world, we don't like words like astrologer or soothsayer or sorcerers. We kind of get a little weirded out by those things. And you probably should start to feel a little uncomfortable that starts to get tied to the nativity story. Because the reality is, it's not just a pretty bow that gets placed on a package, the Christmas story. The reality is there is some much more kind of shady characters that are involved. When it says that they came from the east, this group of wise men or magi or magicians or sorcerers came from Persia, modern day, just east there of Iraq. This was their journey, some 1,100 kilometers. Probably would have taken a typical person to walk that kind of journey about 6 months or so. So this really starts to kind of come into context when we take history and go about 600 years back to this guy named Daniel. Anybody remember Daniel? Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel was someone who lived in Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem was conquered by the Babylonians, and he was taken back to Babylon as an exile. And he kind of has a couple famous stories under his belt. The first one being that he refused to eat the food from the king, right? He wasn't going to eat the meat and all those things that they offered. He wanted to eat food that was more aligned with the diet that God had called him to. So he said, let's do a test. If after 10 days we look better, me and my friends, right, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, if we look better than all the people eating the steak and the filet mignons and all those things, then let us go. If not, then you can kill us, and no harm, no foul. And at the end of the 10 days, it turned out that they were much healthier looking than the people who kind of got to eat whatever they wanted to. As a result of that, not only did they get to live, but then they got to be promoted. And then we get to another story, and one that's kind of more tied to the nativity story, is the king starts to have a dream. He's having a dream, and it's really affecting him. He wakes up in a cold sweat because he doesn't understand what it means. He wakes up and he calls all the soothsayers, all the astrologers, all the magicians, all the people who, practice kind of weird things that we would be freaked out about. He calls them together and says, I need you guys to interpret my dream. But just so I can trust you that you guys aren't just making things up and don't have my peril at heart, not only do I want you to interpret the dream, but I want you to tell me what the dream was. And this group of astrologers and magicians and soothsayers, they say, King, we'd love to interpret the dream, but nobody is capable of telling you what your dream is. So the king says, okay, I'm going to kill all of you. And word gets back to Daniel, and Daniel's a part of this group, part of these astrologers and soothsayers and magicians. And he says, wait a second, I believe that God does extraordinary, miraculous things, and I believe he can tell me what the dream is. Give me some time. And that's exactly what happened. Daniel invites his friends to pray, and they are praying, and God reveals to him what King Nebuchadnezzar's dream was, and he goes to the king and tells him not only what the dream was, but what the dream meant. And as a result, in Daniel chapter 2, it says that the King Nebuchadnezzar started having the dreams, and they disturbed him deeply. He couldn't sleep. Again, he called in all the Babylonian, this is the group, the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and fortune tellers to interpret his dream for him. Then the king, after having told him what the dream was, promoted Daniel to a high position in the kingdom. He lavished him with gifts and made him governor over the entire province of Babylon, and the chief in charge of all the Babylonian what? Wise men. Right? Somehow this group of magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and fortune tellers got grouped together as a bunch of wise men. And Daniel became the chief magician, enchanter, sorcerer, fortune teller, or wise man. He gets promoted. He's now the top dog. He goes from the level 33 wizard in Dungeons & Dragons to now he's, level 40 Grandmaster wizard in Dungeons & Dragons. Right? It's not a pretty bow. It doesn't make any sense for us because we thought, this is the nativity story. It's all cut and dry, and there shouldn't be any kind of wizardry or witchcraft or sorcery involved in these things. And we see here that the wise men is this kind of collective term that really represents everything that the church has come to distance itself from. Even in that day when these wise men or magi came it freaked everybody out. Herod was terrified, and all of Jerusalem was terrified because of these guys' resume, because of the things that they were a part of or that was associated with their lifestyle. And this is something that I've seen time and time again growing up in the Christian world. The first experience, probably for most of us, was around this idea of Halloween, right? We always come back to Halloween. Halloween is very bad, right? Christmas, very good. Don't participate in Halloween. Celebrate Christmas to the nines. Or you can do Halloween if it's a harvest party and maybe not at a different day, a different time. As long as you're dressing up in good Christian biblical characters, then it's acceptable. Or another thing growing up, you guys ever heard of these things called Pokemon? Oh man, when Pokemon came out, at first it was super cool. But then word got out that, do you know what Pokemon means? Pokemon is actually short for pocket monsters. And oh man, when the Christian world got a hold of that those were pocket monsters, it was all war against Pokemon. Good Christian kids did not have Pokemon cards. You didn't participate in Pokemon because it represented pocket monsters, and monsters are bad, no good. Or maybe today in our current world, how many of you guys here are Harry Potter fans? Any Harry Potter fans? Yeah, some of you are like, is it okay to raise my hand, right? Like, am I allowed to here? Am I going to have a bolt of lightning strike me? Right? Yeah, Cliff, loud and proud, right? Harry Potter, because it's filled with, wizardry and sorcery and all these things that we see in Daniel's resume and we see in the resume of these band of scholars that are part of this nativity story. The very people that we typically would distance ourselves from and say, you know what, maybe with words you're not welcome here, but maybe just by our actions, you're not welcome here. And we find them playing a major role in the nativity story. Right? Because, forward point, it's the Magi's availability, not their credibility, that puts them in the nativity story. Right? The reality is, thankfully, most of us have a checkered past. Maybe you even have a checkered present. Maybe your credibility is a little shot, or maybe it's a lot shot, based on some decisions that you've made, or based on a series of things you found yourself one time doing or over and over doing, but now your credibility is shot. The great news about the nativity story is it's not about your credibility that puts you in to experience the witness of Jesus. It's your availability. It's your recognizing that there's a star, and you're going to empty yourself in pursuit of that star. And in fact, Jesus makes a point of this just before he goes on the cross. He tells this story. He had just entered in Jerusalem, probably around a similar location to where this is happening. And everyone's saying, Hosanna, and you're going to the Savior of the world. And then they turn on him. And just before they turn on him, he tells a story about two sons. And he says, you know what, the first son was asked to do something, and he said no, but then wound up doing it. And the second son was asked to do the same thing, and he said yes, but then wound up not doing it. And he asked the crowd, which of the two sons do you think did the right thing? And they all responded, the first son, who said no at first, but then wound up doing what he was asked. And Jesus said in Matthew chapter 21, he said, yes, and I tell you that crooks and whores are going to precede you into God's kingdom. Right? The people with the checkered past, the people with absolutely no credibility are going to get into heaven before you religious scholars, before you keepers of all the right rules and hoops to jump through. It's going to be the crooks and the whores who get into heaven before you, because it's not about your credibility. It's not about your credentials, but it's about your availability. And what we see in this part of the nativity story is we see that these magicians, these soothsayers, they're going to see Jesus before Herod and all of the other religious people of Israel. Not because of their credibility, Not because of their resume, but simply because of their availability. And so Herod lost no time as word is getting around, and he's scared. He gathered all the high priests and religion scholars in the city and together asked, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? And they told him, Bethlehem, Judah territory. In fact, here's the prophecy, right? Micah wrote, it's going to be you, Bethlehem, in Judah's land, no longer bringing up the rear, right? From you will come up the leader who will shepherd, rule my people, my Israel. And it's amazing, these religion scholars, Herod is right there in the backyard, and they totally missed it. It was happening right under their noses, and they're oblivious to the Savior of the world had been born. Not was, just now being born, or that night going to be born, or it's going to happen tomorrow night, but months prior, maybe even up to 2 years prior, this grand event had taken place, and the people who should have been able to sniff it out had no idea that it had happened. Totally missed the boat. And Ford Point, let me tell you, that's okay. Right? There's a lot of people who get to 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 and even 80 years old, maybe having missed the boat. But in their missing the boat, they came to a point where they realized, and they made a change in their life. And they decided the future was going to be different. It's okay to miss the boat. It would have been okay for these guys to have said, man, I can't believe it. We missed the boat, but you know what? We're going to get on track now. We're going to get in the game now. We're going to turn our life around and get involved. Because in the nativity story, we see, Ford Point, it's your participation with those that religion despises that determines the level of witness that you will experience. It's easy to participate with everyone the church likes, everyone that we're supposed to, everyone who's clean cut and got it together, looks right. But it's the people who the church usually despises. The magicians, the sorcerers, the soothsayers, the astrologers. Right? It's okay for Herod and these religious leaders to have been terrified and to realize, man, we missed it. We done dope, right? Should have had a V8. But now, let's get involved. Let's get in the story. But is that what they do? Herod then arranged a secret meeting with the scholars from the east, and here's the key into his heart. And maybe the key to some of our hearts is pretending to be as devout as they were. He got them to tell him exactly when the birth announcement star appeared, right? Pretending. Just kind of going through the motions. Maybe clean cut and dressed real nice. Got your red flannel during the Christmas season, because that's what everybody does. Right? You can go through and look the parts, but instead of choosing to say, you know what, man, I missed it. I missed the boat for 10 years of my life, for 30 years of my life, for 50 years of my life. I missed the boat, but today I'm going to stop and I'm going to get on the boat. Or for some of us, we say, you know what, nobody really knows. So as long as I just keep looking the parts, never really being known, and thus never really being able to experience witness, and thus never being able to initiate witness, you're just pretending. Just going through the motions. And then he told them the prophecy about Bethlehem and said, here's what I want you to do. You go find this child. You leave no stone unturned. And as soon as what? You find him. Right? Herod's still fine with you do all the work, and I'm just going to chillax here. And you know what? When you do find him, you send word, and I'll join you at once in what? In your worship. And for many of us, this sums up exactly what our church experience is like. We'll participate in Troy's worship and in Stephen's worship, what they practice and what they do with the music for 30 minutes on a Sunday morning. But when it comes to me going after and following Jesus for myself and worshiping him with my life, well, that's a little too much. That's a little bit more than what I signed up for. I signed up for the nice, clean bow where I get to say a prayer, check in on a Sunday morning, more Sundays than not, maybe drop a little something in the basket as it goes by, and then I'm good. It's clean cut, pretty, together. But forward point, if the extent of the way you use the word worship is just to describe some music on a Sunday morning or to describe a band, then there's a good chance that you identify more with Herod in the nativity story than you do with the Magi, than the magicians. You see, Herod was fine worshiping comfortably from a distance. You pour yourself out. You empty yourself out. You soothsayer, you magician, you gnarly looking people. You go do it. And then I'll kind of just ride your coattails. Fourth wise man. You do it. You do the work. And really that is the message for this morning is, are we more in the camp of Herod, or are we more in the camp of the magicians? And that should be kind of an awkward choice for us to have to make, because we're used to things being wrapped up all pretty with a bow. I'm not supposed to be a magician because magic bad, but Herod's bad too. What do we do? But I tell you, as I dive deep into the story of these guys and I see their history founded in Daniel and how he took over this group of soothsayers and magicians and astrologers, and instead of choosing to point out how they were wrong and terrible and should stop doing what they're doing, he chooses instead to redeem the world around him. And he becomes the leader of this group. And some 600 years later, it's the prophecies that Daniel leaves behind of a Savior who's coming, who wind up changing this band of ragtag people's lives and brings them to a place where they're willing to abandon everything to be a part of the story. Man, I want to be part of that group. Whether or not it comes with the weight and baggage of astrology and magicians and all of that, it doesn't matter. Because these guys got to be part of a story. And look how it affected them. Instructed by the king, they set off. And then the star appeared again. And the same star that they had seen in the eastern skies. And it led them on until it hovered over the place of the child. Now, this is not baby Jesus in the manger with the hay. This is probably little, baby Jesus, maybe teething, maybe now just learning how to walk. They finally get there. And they could hardly contain themselves. And this says so much about what it means to be in pursuit of witness. Having poured yourself out. You see, man, up here on the stage, that's why we do things like the little funny games. I don't appreciate, vulnerable pictures of myself being up on the screen to make a mockery, which I heard was your idea. But in the end, if it helps bring us to a point where we look more like a maybe a kindergarten party than a nursing home, and sometimes it does look like a nursing home out here. Not pointing any fingers, only at all of you. Right? That to realize that maybe we haven't been experiencing witness and maybe we haven't been pouring ourselves out, because when we do, you get to Jesus and they could hardly contain themselves. And how many of us get here on a Sunday morning and that's the way that we could be described? where we could hardly contain ourselves. Man, all the walls of this building Stephen should be kicking us out because we're knocking down walls all the time here at the Palace because of the joy and the excitement and not being able to contain themselves. And they were in the right place and they had arrived at the right time, but they weren't there when the baby was born. It's not a perfect bow, but they got there when they needed to be there, at the right place, at the right time. Man, there's nothing like being a part of people coming to know Jesus, right? People coming in one way and deciding to say, you know what, I'm going to give my life to Jesus. There's nothing like baptisms. Man, baptisms are the awesomest thing where we got this tub full of, most of the time freezing cold water, and people, are shivering, and they're going to say anything we tell them to just to hurry up and get it over with, right? But when they get out, everyone is hooting and hollering. Well, at least the people surrounding them. Sometimes you guys in the seats, you're still just kind of like, like it's awesome that we get to have popcorn. But you get to practice witness. You get to participate, or you can spectate. And if Forward Point is going to make any kind of impact in our community, it's going to be from a bunch of uneducated, a bunch of, ill-equipped people who don't have any kind of amazing skills, but they are just having the time of their lives. They can't contain themselves. They're just living it up. This is before they even had gotten into the house. They entered the house and saw the child in the arms of Mary, his mother, and they were, overcome. And the only appropriate response was to kneel and worship him. And they opened up their luggage and presented gifts, the gold, the frankincense, the myrrh. And then in a dream, they were warned not to report back to Herod, so they worked out another route, left the territory without being seen, and returned to their own country. You see, this is the natural response to witness. These guys were overcome. They couldn't contain themselves. They were overwhelmed. All at the same time, they had no problem just flying under the radar. Right? They're kind of a big deal. They should be seen by Herod and all the most important people, but because of the experience that they had no problem just flying under the radar and leaving and being content with not even being a part of the story. But because of their willingness to pursue witness and to pour themselves out, they get to be a part of the greatest story in human history. The becoming of flesh that God chose to move into the neighborhood with. You see, there's no prophecy, there's no scriptures about, some people who are going to travel from the east and be a part of. There's no mandatory, it had to be these guys, or else everything comes crumbling down. There's lots of parts of prophecies where things had to happen a certain way, or else it's not true. This is not one of those things. But because of their availability, not because of their credentials, because of their willingness to pursue and because of their willingness to pour themselves out, they got to be part of the greatest story ever told. Herod is a king, deserves all the accolade the position holds, but you and I have no idea who Herod is apart from the nativity story. He's just a footnote in the story because he chose, when confronted with what happened in his backyard, to say, oh, you guys, you just do it. I'm going to sit this one out, let you do all the work. Whereas this ragtag group of astrologers and magicians, soothsayers, collectively in our current day, we pretty bow it with wise men, but this is a shady group. They become part of this story. And they were okay with just flying under the radar. You see, because witness It creates security. They didn't need to have any kind of fame or accolades for having discovered, here he is. Versus Herod, right? It created insecurity. And he lashed out by saying, you know what? Anybody 2 years or younger, male, we're going to kill and we're going to get rid of. And what we have here in modern Christian culture is more Herod than we have Magi. And this morning, it's time for us to reflect and ask God, God, would you look at my heart and see who are the people in my life that are the astrologers, the soothsayers, the magicians, the people that for maybe years I've labeled as being untouchable and unclean, and people who we stay away from because they might corrupt us. Who are those people in our lives? And for some people, you know, it is a reality. It might be people within our own family. Right? There's no people probably harder to get along with than siblings. To which any person who has a sibling said, amen. Right? Like, these are the people who you have lived life with the longest. These are people who know all of your buttons. That, you know, probably no greater example of outcasts in your life than maybe some of your siblings. And one of the things I love getting that video of Augustine and seeing her emotional at this reward, recognition that she had gotten. But even more than seeing that and seeing her love for those things, there's a part of the video you may have missed, but in the video it showed where her sister, somebody who's familiar with getting this recognition, comes up over to her sister and goes after her sister to give her sister a hug. Right, my daughters are not perfect. They're always fighting, and I try to tell them all the time, you know, your siblings are going to be your best friends. At least they have the potential to be. As long as you don't do too much damage now. But to me, as awesome as the recognition is for Augustine and what she did, one of the most under-the-radar things is for a big sister to take on the lowly place and just love on her little sister. Right? Someone who probably annoys the crap out of her, somebody who probably does everything that she can at home to annoy her. Right? She wouldn't do it at C-SPA or else she'd never get the award. But at home, I'm sure the final Bob award is the last thing that her sister would choose to give her. But in the midst of the public and in the midst of all these people, she could have played it cool. She could have just sat down and let everybody else do the hugging. Right? She's getting all the accolade, all the people are loving at her. Nobody's really going to notice if she just kind of sits in the back. And for far too long, Forward Point, we've been Christians who just sit in the back watching the magicians and the soothsayers struggle and hit their heads trying to find the meaning of life. And we've said, you got to clean up your act before you experience witness. And maybe today for you, as God's beginning to reveal who it is in you are the soothsayers and the magicians and the astrologers. But there's a good chance it may be someone in your family, or it may be somebody in your neighborhood, it may be somebody in your workplace, it may be somebody in the opposite political party that you identify with, but there's probably somebody. And Forward Point, this frozen northeast miserable land that we live in, is only ever going to become overcome with the presence of having encountered Jesus if you and I decide to say we are going to be moved by the witness that Jesus showed for us when he moved into the neighborhood, that we are in turn going to pour ourselves out to be instruments of witness in the world that we live in, and then be okay with him getting all the credit and we just fly under the radar and we just do our thing. And that's what's being offered to us this morning. It's not accolades. It's not a guarantee that the room is going to be packed. It's just an invitation to be faithful right where you're at, with no guarantee that anything's going to change, with no guarantee that it's going to be different. Just a call to practice witness where you live and where you do life, and to pour yourself out. And would you do that this morning? And would you do it this afternoon? And would you do it this evening? And would you do it tomorrow? Would your life become an act of worship and be an initiator of witness to the world that God has placed you in? God, we're so grateful that we can come to a place where we can kind of deconstruct maybe a story that we've thought we knew, maybe a story that we hear every year in the same way, and as the reality of maybe it's not just the way that we always thought it was. That as the weight of realizing that it's a whole lot messier than we've always made it out to be. God, in the same way, we've tried to sugarcoat it and to make it look pretty and to make it look like it makes sense. We've allowed the rawness. We've allowed the brutality. We've allowed it all to fade, and it's lost its effectiveness. And this morning, we want to come back to a place with you where we're experiencing witness with you. Because when we experience witness with you, we can't help but be overcome. And for far too many of us, probably for far too long, we've just been going through the motions and riding on the coattails of other people. And this morning, God wants to start something new for some of you here. That it's not going to be as a result of some kind of special prayer that you say, some kind of formulaic words that you muster together that's going to change the rest of your life. It's going to be a response this morning. It's going to be a choosing to do things differently this morning, to engage differently from this moment forward, to orient your life around the author of witness. And this Christmas might be different. Might be different for us. Might be different for Eastwood and for Syracuse and for Central New York. When a bunch of people with no agenda just say that we're going to pour out and we're going to go after the star. It's a star we don't even see anymore. It's not even in the sky anymore. But we're just going to keep going towards where we last saw it. Would you use us like that? And would you do the work in us this morning that it's going to take inside of us to form us and to change us and to make us vessels that you can use that way in our community? That's what we need from you this morning. Would you do that in us?
captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. O come thou day spring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here, and drive away the shades of night, and pierce the clouds and bring us light. Rejoice, 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 Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. O come, desire of nations bind, all people in one heart and mind. Bid envy, strife, and quarrel cease. Fill all the world with heaven's speed. Rejoice, 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 Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, 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 Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Rejoice, 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 Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Shall come to thee, O Israel.
Sing with us. For unto us a child is born, a son is given, a son is given. Let me hear ya. For unto us a child is born, a son is given, a son is given. The Messiah, oh, to see him high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. For For unto us a child is born, a son is given, a son is given. For unto us a child is born, a son is given, a son is given. The Messiah, oh, to see him high and lifted up, ooh, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy. You are high, 'cause you are high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, 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 holy. Sing it again. And holy, 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 and holy, 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 holy. For unto us a child is born, holy. We sing holy, holy, holy. Let me hear you, church. For unto us a child is born, we sing holy, holy, holy. For unto us a child is born, we sing holy, holy, holy. For unto us a child is born, we sing holy, holy, holy.
Sorry, I thought they were going to trick me again. Thank you so much for joining us today. I, too, identify as the fourth man of wisdom, and felt that this week, too, there was a few things at work, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, I'm not adulty enough. I'm always looking for the other adult in the room. It never me. I like the idea that we get to be with the unloved. I never want to feel that I'm a part of a clique where people feel they can't join, because often I have been that person outside of a clique. So I love that we all invite each other with open arms. We are a building, a hospital of the unloved, of the unclean, and we want to just be part of that. And we get to do that here with love handles and all of the things that we do in the community. So I just love that, being a part of this. Again, if you're new here, thank you so much for stepping into a new community of faith. We know how scary that is. Please, if you haven't connected with one of us before you leave, please feel free to do so. If you don't want to do that, just text us 2315-883-2213 and get connected through the Church Center app. If this is your home community and you want to help us continue to do what we do in the neighborhood, please consider giving through our Joy Box in the back, through our online site, through the Church Center app again. And we just thank you for that, because it makes all things possible. Again, for our next steps, don't forget to download that Church Center app. You can find out about fun events. Mama Skinner just reminded me from 1 to 3 today, bring your appetites. She always has such good food. And then you get to see her wonderful tree that tells the story of the Nativity. As always, we have prayer available here. We did move them. They are no longer in this back corner. They are now outside behind the info desk in the little corner right behind, I don't know, stage right or left, whatever. This corner back there, I don't know, my right or my left. But please, they will be there before service and after service. They are confidential. They are wonderful. Anything that is on your heart, and we need help getting the palace back in shape. They have an event right after this, so please see us at the back closet. We'll give you brooms, things like that. We can quickly get it all done so we can get over to Mama Skinner's for lunch. And last but not least, don't forget your kiddos today, as we love you all, and we're going to continue with one last song. Oh, wait, one more thing, I'm sorry. If you have an assignment for Christmas Eve, please meet us down front for a very brief meeting today. Okay, thank you.
You tricked us.
Wait, there's more. Wait, there's more.
All right, angels we have heard on high. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Deo, Gloria in excelsis Deo. Shepherds, shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? Won't the gladsome tidings be, which inspire your heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis Deo, in excelsis Deo. Come to Bethlehem, come to Bethlehem and see Christ whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee, 'cause Christ the Lord, the newborn King, and Gloria in excelsis Deo, Gloria in excelsis Deo. All right, see him in a manger. See him in a manger laid, whom the choirs of angels praise. Mary, Joseph, lend your aid, while our hearts in love we raise. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Vocals. Gloria in excelsis Deo, and Gloria in excelsis Deo, and Gloria in excelsis Deo. We love you, 4 Point.